Today, we're excited to welcome our special guest, Dr. Michael Winlo. Dr. Winlo is the managing director of Emyria, a biotech company bringing together patients, clinicians, researchers, and medical innovators to develop new care models for patients with unmet needs by using novel treatments. Dr. Winlo, I would like to start by thanking you for being with us here today. I thought it would be fun to take this opportunity to get to know you a little bit better. Can you tell us, how did you get started in drug development?
Thanks for the opportunity to speak today. Look, I was reflecting on this question. I think I really fell into drug development happily by trying to follow some career advice that I was shared as a young medical doctor. And that was, it's always good to look out for that intersection of your passions, your interests and opportunities, or really passions, talents and opportunities, because you might be into something but not very good at it. And so early on in my career, I wanted to get into medical entrepreneurship. I had encountered in the hospitals this incredible friction to getting things done, and thought that one could make maybe a bigger difference by through the innovation pathways, creating new tools for doctors. And so the very first opportunity that I came across to do that was in a medical device project that I got started with my very best friend in medical school. And that took me into a path where suddenly I went into part-time medicine. I got into the world of fundraising, starting companies, and I could see the huge potential that a well-run entrepreneurship endeavor could have in the world. Now, needless to say, we were a spectacular failure, one might say. We didn't actually get off the ground, but we learned a lot. And for me, it set me on a direction that I've not looked away from since. And so from that point, I went off to do my MBA, came to the States actually, although I'm back in Australia now. And after my MBA, I went into a company called Palantir, looking at using data analysis and integration technologies to help big health institutions. And this is everything from drug companies to health insurers, large health services around the world. And through that experience, got a really deep appreciation for the role that data could play in changing the way we deliver healthcare and the speed at which we can do things like drug development. And then finally, when it came time to come back to Australia, my wife kind of dragged me back. We had two kids in the US, and it was time to bring them back closer to their family. My first role here was CEO of a clinical trial site, and for me that didn't seem like such a big leap, because it was in the role of a service industry where we were producing data for overseas biotech companies, predominantly out of the United States. So that gave me a connection back there, and I got a really deep appreciation for the role that clinical trials can play, but also saw opportunities to, I guess, improve the way data was collected and gathered. And so that role, I guess, layered in with my other experiences, healthcare, data, technology analysis, clinical trials, now kind of takes me to Emyria, where I'm trying to combine all three of those experiences to improve the way that drugs can be developed by taking the very best of clinical trial worlds and bringing it into frontline clinical care.
That's great. Thanks for sharing that with us, Dr. Winlo. I was hoping you could also give us some background on Emyria. What makes it the organization that it is today, and what makes their program so unique?
Yeah, so at Emyria, we're trying to break this dichotomy that often exists between care delivery and drug discovery, or I guess clinical innovation. So if we think about, what's the purpose of a clinical trial or a study, it's a systematic investigation of a particular question. But if we think about healthcare, it's really around the care of the individual or service delivery. We think about how decisions are made. In clinical trials, we follow a very strict protocol, but in medical practice, clinicians are free to exercise their profession and make the very best decision available to them. In trials, we're very exclusive with who we let in on studies, whereas clinical care, is very inclusive by design. And so you get these really interesting tensions that probably explain some of the challenges with trying to do research in a healthcare setting. And I think maybe one of the most obvious differences is in the way data is collected and gathered in clinical trials. Very strictly, one must collect data according to certain protocols and principles. In healthcare, famous for having often terrible note-taking and messy doctors' handwriting to contend with, and so hard to divine much meaning from much of healthcare data that's collected. So at Emyria, we're trying to bring, I guess, clinical trial disciplines, practices, infrastructure into the medical clinics. We run a national network here in Australia of 7 medical centres where we hire our own doctors. The GCP trained, that's good clinical practice, so they have an understanding of clinical trial methodologies, data collection principles. We have an electronic data capture system that sits beside or really alongside our electronic medical record, and we collect a lot of validated clinical assessments. We're collecting outcomes data essentially for patients who are referred to us at our clinics. Now that's a little bit different because it's not typically done in usual practice, and it creates an opportunity for us to evaluate brand new treatments. And so all of the patients are referred to us because nothing else is working for them. And through our clinics, we give them access through use of compassionate access programs or standard clinical trials. We give those patients access to new promising treatments. And our goal is to find a better way to both deliver care to these patients, give them an option where they've run out of other options in some cases, and at the same time try to learn from every patient and take those learnings hopefully to the benefit of many more patients like them by registering treatments that show the greatest promise.
That's great. We know there are so many challenges to overcome and successfully deliver a drug to market. What is the most significant challenge you've had to face, and how did you overcome it?
Yeah, probably the biggest challenge, and we've still got many more ahead of us. We're on as a company very early on in our own independent drug development programs, but is one of the largest challenges is establishing an appreciation amongst early investors of ours and partners of the value and the importance of proper clinical studies and drug registration. We work in a world with unregistered treatments in many cases, where the producers of those drugs or products are quite happy to have their treatments available to patients without having to go through the onerous hurdles of clinical trials. And so we stand, sometimes we feel like a lone voice urging those companies to continue with proper clinical trials and registration. So really overcoming some of that reluctance to commit the time, money, and investment to have those treatments properly vetted and evaluated through the clinical trial registration process. That's definitely something we're personally very committed to. And you see, we initially started our clinics to try and provide data for companies who would come to us looking for our help in figuring out where their drugs work best. We thought initially our role would be to help those companies get their own treatments registered. As that has become less of the case, we've decided to take those matters into our own hands, for want of a better word, and actually develop our own treatments. That's actually a much more exciting path for us. It's got a much larger upside if we're successful, but of course it's a longer, more challenging road. But it's one that we think we can do well with and feel we've got an advantage because we've got access to those patients and the data that we've collected.
That's very insightful. And what do you think has made Emyria the successful company that it is today?
Yeah, I think adherence to those principles, commitment to that boring word of registration and trying to convince people that that's actually an exciting accomplishment. I think also try to bridge that world between mainstream and traditional drug development, and so we've got the credibility and respect of groups who understand what's involved in drug development, the large CROs, the sophisticated investors who back the very best biotech companies. I think see us as a differentiated company because we understand what's involved in the process. We've got an incredible team that's done it before, and so we're a good bet on taking our drug development programs forward. I think that's a key thing. Also, just being really consistent about the message. We've never wavered from trying to tell people that registration is the worthwhile goal. Yes, we think we can apply our talents and our skills and infrastructure to do it quicker, but we still believe it's a necessary part of the journey.
You recently secured a $5 million strategic investment from Tatarang. How does Emyria succeed at raising capital, and what advice do you have to give to startups or biotech companies that are looking for funding?
Right. So as you know, drug development very capital intensive. 5 million doesn't go particularly far, but we're delighted to have the support of Tattering on board. Yep. This is the private investment fund of one of the largest private family wealth funds in Australia, and they've supported a number of good, really fascinating and worthwhile initiatives in a variety of industries, actually. Now, how do we get the money from that? I think we were able to speak to the principals I spoke to before about doing the hard work. That while that might be the longer road, that's in the long term the more worthwhile, and I guess the opportunity that's the greatest and can deliver the greatest returns both for patients and for investors as well. I think in terms of getting funding support, one needs to be consistent. One needs to have validation, not be the only person telling your story. Have others tell your story for you as well and actually show you credibility. There's so much novelty involved in a new venture that just novelty on its own won't be the thing that gets investors to support you. They will go, right, there's novelty everywhere. What I need to know is, do you have the team? Do you have the commitment? Do you have the consistent message? Do you have the approach that's going to actually get you there over the line and turn this novelty into something worthwhile, something mainstream, something non-novel at the end of the day. And so, credibility, recognition from peer support, I think is key, and obviously having a great team and showcasing that great team.
That's some great advice. Switching angles a little bit, what are the top 3 things you look for in a CDMO CRO partner? And how do you forge a successful strategic partnership with them to reach your goals and meet your critical milestones?
Yeah, worked with a number of CROs, played the role of being a clinical trial site myself. So service industry is challenging, but I think the principles that make a great partner are the same, which is, being really honest about what you can do well, what you can't do well. That honesty needs to come across when things are going according to plan, when things waver from plan. I think just being upfront, keeping people transparent is key. We're going to run into inevitable challenges. So then the next thing is about having options, being creative, being generative of ideas, thinking through things. Okay, we've run into this roadblock, but here are 2 or 3 things I think we can try. I think that always really impresses me, and I think is goes a long way as well. So along with honesty and having options, I think great communication is the other key thing. Is this a team that's got answers at their fingertips, or when we're on calls, they've got all the right people around? And I can say honestly, and I know I'm not primed to say this, but we're having done some work with Altasciences team. They've really demonstrated these qualities in a really tremendous way. I'm always impressed with the fact that we've got big teams on the conference calls to make sure that all our questions can be answered quickly and promptly, and that's made the project go really well. We're actually working with a number of divisions of the Altasciences family, if you will. We approached the team maybe 3 or 4 months ago with a challenge to try and formulate a cannabinoid-based biopharmaceutical, which we believed would be really efficacious for a particular patient population. And that team iterated with us, problem solved on how that formulation could be optimized, got through some formulations, were able to get a couple of really terrific dose forms, which we're really pleased with, developed really quickly. But then we wanted to take that through some of the animal studies. And so we worked with another Altasciences team to get a dog study done, really expediently, went like without hitch. And I think we also had to leverage some of the bioanalytical capabilities of the Altasciences family as well, and certainly did appreciate the close way those groups all worked with each other to kind of get our project done. And essentially within 3 to 4 months, we had, from initial conception, had some early PK results which guided our program, and we're now taking that dose form into phase 1 studies here in Australia. And so we've been really pleased with how quickly we've been able to move forward, and the end result, we're very excited about taking that program into trials.
That's great. And I can say that Altasciences is extremely excited to be partnering with you on the development of some of these novel treatments. Okay, so let's end with our 3-question feature. Are you in?
Oh, let's do it.
Tell us what you like to do outside of work.
Okay, so I've got 2 young kids. I like to play with them. I've got a boy and a girl. So one I'm playing Lego, the other one I'm playing dress-ups or coloring in. So they're 9 and 7. And I've got a guitar as well. I like to play some music if I get some alone time. Yeah.
Okay, next question. What motto do you live by?
Oh, one I really like is that, the future belongs to the optimists. I mean, as an entrepreneur, you just always got to be optimistic. And I think, look, inevitably things go, challenges come your way. And if you can just remain optimistic, just see your way through it, I think it becomes almost a superpower. And all the people that have done remarkable things, I think deep down have had to have an optimistic view that the future can be better than today. And I really like that sentiment.
Okay, next. Now, I'm an avid traveler, so I'm very curious to know what your answer is going to be to this question. Tell us, what is your favorite vacation destination?
Well, earlier last year, I had a fantastic trip with my father, who was leaving rural general practice for the first time. And we got on a forward drive. We loaded up with a heap of equipment that had nothing to do with survival. It was Windex and car cleaner and all sorts of stuff. It was basically all his personal belongings. Got out in the bush for a week to this remarkable isolated island called Dirk Hartog Island on the sort of north west of Western Australia. And that was just an awesome experience. We were ill prepared, but that took away none of the thrill of being out in the wide open spaces.
And last, can you tell the audience a fun fact about yourself?
A fun fact about myself. Okay, I used to play in a surreal country rock band called the Howling Desperados, and possibly if you Google that name on Spotify, you may even find some of our songs.
Those were all great answers. Dr. Winlo, thank you for sharing and for being here with us today. And thank you all for listening. Be sure to check out our other podcasts, webinars, and videos on the Altasciences podcast and webinars channel.
Pleasure. Really, thank you for the opportunity to speak with you today. I really enjoyed it.